Welcome to another episode of Methanol Madness presented by the Ranch Bar and Grill. Well, it is officially February and we have not gone racing here at Ruapuna Speedway yet in 2026. AJ, it's been a very disappointing summer for race fans here in Christchurch.
Yeah, what a summer, and it's going to be the season of two halves, isn't it? It's nearly 2 months since we went racing, but the forecast for tomorrow is good, so we're going racing.
And that sounds really good to all of us here at Ruapuna as well. It's a long time between events. We're going to get the show started tonight with the KH Fabrication Crash of the Week. And we thought we would revisit this TQ crash from the Rhinestone Memorial, AJ.
Yeah, a little bit of contact there. It was Olivia Stewart just made a contact there with Blake Findlay, and round she went, but sort of from the right-hand side of the shot, there goes Rebecca Bugler, and yep, she just overcorrected, and what a ride.
Very glad to see Rebecca walk away from that one okay. Now, the review of the week is looking a little light this week, of course, with no racing back on January 25th with the early decision to cancel/postpone that event. AJ, obviously the weather on January 24th, not playing ball at all. A lot of racing all around the country impacted by weather that weekend.
Yeah, I think every single track has had a dog of a summer, really, haven't they? And, you know, traditionally February is a good weather month, as is March, so you know, we can kick the blues behind, but there'll be a lot of racetracks that will be hoping the same thing, and potentially a lot of calendar congestion too, because no one wants to actually just strike a date off the calendar and lose it.
Definitely not. We do have a few things that we can touch on that have happened since our last episode with some of the drivers that we know very well here on Methanol Madness. It was great to see the support for the Jim Wilkie Memorial at Beachlands Speedway in the weekend. It was a stellar field of 10 midgets headed down there. Great number for the travelling series for the South Island midgets there, AJ.
Yeah, it is very good, and I think for the midget car really to increase its popularity with race fans, like the people at Ruapuna love their midget car racing because we're well and truly exposed to it, but to reacquaint the people at the likes of Nelson and Dunedin with midget car racing and just how good it can be and what it offers. I think that it needs really good fields. It pretty much needs every driver to commit to doing it, because you know the likes of the Wilkies from Dunedin, you do not know where the next Gavin Wilkie is that's going to field a car for their son, and it could be in Dunedin. And you know, we really have to put that reach out right around the South Island to get drivers and people enthused. And you know, if I was a rally car driver and I saw midget car racing for the first time, I'd say to hell with driving around hills and so on, I want to go midget car racing. So, you know, it really needs total buy-in, but what a great effort for the guys to go down there.
100%, and there was, as we just said there, a lot of our field travelled down there. Great to see Paul Denson headed down there. Mark Morris was down there as well in his midget. We had the rookie Scott Boyce head down there as well. His first meetings in the grid and able to travel off the mentor program, which is great. Really, really impressed with Ben Smith as well, AJ. He finished third in the feature there that night, and he's very fast every time he steps back in the midget, and I hope we get to see him more consistently.
Oh, so do I, and I'm unashamedly a big fan of Ben Smith. You know, he leaves nothing on the plate. He gets out there and gives it absolutely everything, and yeah, he's been like that back in the TQ days and so on, and he adds something to the class. You know, like we haven't got Glenn Jury this year, whether Glenn ever returns. You know, I don't think Glenn even knows, but when you've got someone like Ben Smith, who's a bit of a one-man excitement machine, it adds so much to it. You know, you've got Ben Morgan, who's kind of like the young Mr. Cool sort of thing, and you know, he's potentially, you know, one of the best that we're ever going to have. And you've got Jay Chadwick as well. You know, you've got these young guys, and then you've got Ben Smith, who's a few years older than them, but boy, he gets right into it, and he's a big attraction when it comes to watching midget car racing.
Definitely. It was a clean sweep for Ben down in Dunedin as well in the weekend, as well as Nathan Wilkie finishing second. Fresh off a North Island tour there, they went up there for the New Zealand midgets, which was amazing to see as well, AG. Always good to see what some extra laps can do for these drivers.
Yeah, it raises the bar, there's no doubt about it. And you know, that's the reason we've got some of the North Island Sprintcar guys showing a lot of interest in what's happening down here, because the South Island is arguably the hotbed of Sprintcar racing in New Zealand. So those guys want to be down here, sort of exposing themselves to that. Whereas for the midget cars, you know, deny it as much as people want to. The North Island pretty much forever has been where midget car racing's at, and when drivers travel and they're up against a new field, exposed to guys that are far more seasoned and so on, you actually you get dragged along, and they learn a lot on the track and they learn a heck of a lot off it. And you know, you just see that with guys that have campaigns up north, what they come back as, and yeah, full credit to them for doing it, because I think they did exceedingly well at Bay Park right across the board.
I think it would have been great to see the 12C down there as well. Liam carried a lot of speed in our last meeting, of course, but we'll have to wait until this weekend to see him. Again, AJ, this midget field getting to travel down there, and you know, I'm sure they've got the South Islands coming up in Nelson as well, so hopefully they get a similar field going up there as well. But the quarter midgets were also down there in full force for the first time in a number of years, with a full field of 18 cars. It never ceases to amaze me how many cars, you know, a full field every time they go anywhere, which is great.
Oh, it's incredible. The numbers just defy, they always defy logic with the quarter midgets, and they go down there and there's 18 of them, and next thing they're McLoving it because they've got 10 lap heat races and so on. Got to just about have kittens if they wanted to have 10 lap heat races all the time. But, you know, again, it's further exposure to the class, and you know, there's a lot of motorsport people down in Dunedin, and all you need is, you know, 2 or 3 parents to start saying, hey, we want our kid to be doing this, and you know, then it just morphs and it grows, and the whole South Island actually benefits from that.
Definitely they do. It was actually only in the year of COVID that the quarter midgets were scheduled to make an appearance down in Beachland, so although that was cancelled, glad they were able to put something together to attend down there, and hope they get to go back as well. It's nice to see them getting to travel south for once as well. Was Jackson Kedsley and Jackson Clark both picking up heat race wins down there, and Jackson Clark picking up the feature win as well, with Kedsley finishing in second and Troy Carnahan measured in third there. The race was actually called short due to a big accident as well, so sending our well wishes to Troy, but technically first podium, which is a great result as well. The Wingless Sprints also visited Riverside Speedway over the weekend for the Scott Gordon Memorial, where it was Steve Duff Jr. picking up a heat win and the feature win, AJ. I think he's really liking this Wingless Sprint stuff.
He is, and yeah, we've made numerous comments both in the commentary here at Ruapuna and on the show that Steve Duff Jr., he adds something, almost a different perspective to the Wingless Sprint class, and he's won a heck of a sprint car racer, and I sure hope we see him back in the 410 soon. But when he is into that Wingless Sprint stuff, he's all fire and brimstone, and you can see him working the wheel, and he is getting stuck into it, and he's making things very hard for the guys who were perhaps a little more settled at the front of the field, and he's making it hard for them. He's a very good driver, and that Scotty Gordon event is actually gaining a lot of credibility in the Wingless Sprint series.
It's been a huge month of sprint car racing in Australia as well. Getting back into kind of touching on some international waters here, as we've seen a lot of racing going on over there. The month of January, of course, Perth Motorplex hosts the High Limit International Series at the end of December, as well as a big speed week over there, and then everyone heads back over to the East Coast as well. But we've been following along with previous New Zealand champ Max Guilford, AJ. He spent a lot of time over there this month, a lot of money and resources to send the operation over there, and I'm sure it will do wonders for his career once again.
I think, firstly, it's probably the most concerted effort put in by a Kiwi to run over in Australia. You know, Barry Butterworth did a lot, but he lived over there for a big chunk of that. And Lyndon Kendall and Ian Easton, you know, there's a whole bunch of guys that through the years have done something. Alan Wakeling, Kerry Jones, they ran over in Perth, and then they also ran up in Brisbane and so on. But Max settled on a campaign, and he's made a lot of people sit up, and obviously he's got the benefit of running through the USA for, you know, a big chunk of 2025, and he follows that on by racing in Australia. So you hear it so often, it's all about laps, and Max has got the laps underneath him, and I think he probably caught a lot of people by surprise, because they do sort of look down their snouts at New Zealanders and so on, but Max has really made them sit up, and he's put up one heck of a show over there, and you know, he's like a Kiwi Aussie now.
So, of course, Max was representing with the 1NZ over there, as well as he competed in big races across the Brant Speedway, the Power Tour, then he raced at the Classic and the Australian title as well. Not without a little bit of controversy there, of course, as traditional rules, as you read them, technically makes it sound like you have to be an Australian citizen to compete in that title. We loophole, you can become a resident quite easily when you're from New Zealand as well, AJ, but you've got to try everything that you can to be able to be in these big races, and unfortunately that title not going to plan for Max.
Yeah, Max, he's not one that's just sort of does things in half measures, and he's never going to ever die wondering. And, they were just very smart how they did it. And the loophole is actually big enough to drive a sprint car hauler through sideways if you really want to. And good on him for giving it a crack. Just alluding back to Barry Butterworth a number of years ago, he tried the same thing, even though he was living there, but he was in a Kiwi resident, citizen sort of thing, and that was the end of the Baz. He could not run the Australian Championship, so good on Max, and all power to him.
His campaign came to an end in his first heat race at the title, coming together with another car and causing some serious chassis damage as well that rendered them unable to compete in the rest of the weekend. But the final Australian Sprint Car Championship results there went to first place Jock Goodyear, second place James McFadden, and third place Ryan Newton as well. So great to see all the championships being run over in New Zealand and Australia, and now of course Jock Goodyear and Daniel Thomas, the reigning champs of those two countries. But now, since we're speaking of sprint cars, we're going to chat to someone now who knows sprint cars very, very well. Joining us on the show is X3NZ and current 78C sprint car driver Matthew Leversedge. Matthew, welcome to Methanol Madness.
Thanks, Louise. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
So we're going to talk a little bit about Matthew's history in speedway racing as well. You didn't just jump straight into sprint cars. You worked your way up through quarter midgets, TQs, and then into sprint cars. Talk about how taking that traditional route into speedway kind of shaped you as you were able to grow up through all those classes.
Yeah, it started a long time ago now. Obviously at 29, I started racing quarter midgets here at Ruapuna at 8 years old. So yeah, I did the traditional, started at 8. I actually started in cadet level go-karts out at Cars Road and Wigram. And then obviously my family was heavily involved in speedway, so my dad thought it was a great idea to throw me in a quarter midget. So I did that for about 7 seasons and then got a dispensation to race TQs. Moved up to TQs, ran about 3 years in that, and then moved into sprint cars and have been there ever since, and it feels like it's been a while now.
You've had a lot of success in all of those classes as well. You picked up the 2NZ and the TQ at Greymouth back in 2014-15 season. Talk about your time in that class and being able to pick up that 2NZ.
Yeah, no, I had a really good time in TQs. My short time there managed to win the South Island Championship and the New Zealand Grand Prix as well, and got a 2NZ at Greymouth, which has a lovely controversial story that goes along with it. So it was a short but successful stint, and I was obviously pleased to cut my teeth in that class and learn a lot of skills that I think really helps translate to the sprint car now.
So we follow the growth of the TQ class a lot here on the show, especially these last few seasons as we've seen that next generation come in. But then it was time for you to make that jump into the sprint car class. How did you know that you were ready? Obviously your family's involvement, it was kind of inevitable that you would end up there, but how was that like for you and having to jump up into all that horsepower?
It was, I think I was about 19 at the time, and obviously it was a big step up. It was sort of, I don't think you're ever going to be fully ready, but it just felt like the right time. We'd done 3 years in TQs, and it was never a long-term goal to keep racing TQs, so decided to take the leap and, jumped in a sprint car and ran the War of the Wings series that first year and had a lot of fun.
So with that War of the Wings season, of course, we've spoken about that a lot on the show this season as well, as we're following some rookie drivers come through. How important do you think that was to your career to get to run the War of the Wings so early?
Yeah, no, it was exciting. Obviously, the numbers were really good. I think that was 2016. So the numbers were really good. There was a lot of veterans in the class, so I was one of the youngest by far. So it was a real learning experience. You sort of had to learn to race with respect. And it taught me a lot, being able to travel to all the different tracks, Dunedin, Nelson, Blenheim, Ruapuna, Cromwell. We raced probably about 7 or 8 rounds and had a lot of fun and somehow managed to finish 4th in the series. And it was a really successful rookie campaign.
Then jumping forward quite a few years, you picked up the 3NZ at the New Zealand Sprint Car title here at Ruapuna Speedway, and I remember it very vividly. I remember everybody being very, very happy for you. It was kind of like a hometown hero moment. Describe it or relive what that night was like for you guys getting to pick up the 3NZ.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. It was probably one of the best nights of my life so far. I remember getting interviewed by AJ Batt on the infield, and it was sort of like a pinch me moment for a second there. The crowd cheered really loudly when I got announced as third, so that was really cool. And it was just a huge moment for me, my family, the team around me, and my partners. It was a dream come true, and it was like I said, probably the best night of my racing career so far.
Now, you guys as a team spent a lot of time in the North Island as well, especially recently. You guys based yourselves out of there basically, but always represented the sea with pride, which we've always loved as well. But for you guys basing yourselves out of there, you picked up 2 third places in the North Island titles at Western Springs. How was that experience for you guys, and what made you make the decision to, operate out of the North Island essentially for those years?
Yeah, it was a funny story actually. I started studying up there at Massey University, and it sort of just made sense to not travel home so much and race up there and make my father do all the travelling. So we went up there, and it was a real eye-opener. The competition, like a lot of people talk about, it's really cutthroat, it's tough. Racing against guys like Michael Pickens, Jamie McDonald and Jonathan Allard on a regular basis, really, I'd say, toughens you up racing-wise, and you get used to racing, the best each and every night. So yeah, it was a very hard and steep learning experience, but we had a lot of fun. I don't regret anything about it. We managed to win 3 features at Western Springs and got quite a few podiums and the two finishes third in the North Island title. So it was a successful stint. Obviously it's a shame that Western Springs is now shut, but it's cool to be now campaigning full time in the South Island and hopefully trying to chase the War of the Wings series.
Anyone that follows along with your social media, etc., will know that you have a really good online presence within the sport. What kind of made you approach things like that, and what made you realize that approaching things like that will help you get partners and long-term sponsors? What kind of helped you guide you into that space?
It was probably from a young age. I realised when we first went sprint car racing, we definitely were probably one of the smallest budget teams at the time. We had one car, one spare right rear, and minimal spares. So I sort of realised that if I wanted to do this for a considerable amount of time, I was going to have to try and find some sponsorship, and that was what I was actually studying at university, was a marketing and communications degree. So I thought, why not apply the two together and try build a following and learn how to manage partnerships and get partners on board to obviously make it possible. So it was sort of something I had to do, especially if I want to be sitting here now at 29 still racing sprint cars, still getting to live out my dream. It's a very important aspect of that.
Do you think there's any kind of secret to being able to keep these brands engaged year after year? Obviously you've got some pretty big corporate sponsors, and you have in the past as well. What's the secret to keeping them on board and keeping them involved in your racing? I
think just doing what you say you're going to do. I learned early on that a lot of businesses have been sort of burnt when it comes to sponsorship, that a lot of people approach it as, hey, I'm going to give you X amount of money, they do the deal, and then they don't go and see them until the next off season when they need some more money. And obviously to anyone that doesn't sound like a good partnership. So I sort of learned early on, make sure you follow through with what you're going to do and don't overpromise something you can't deliver. But I think just maintaining a regular social media presence, having some offset on-track success, I think definitely helps. But just representing them the best you can and always looking for ways to add more value to the partnerships, I think is huge. I think that's where we've had a lot of success is, if you look at over the last 10 years, I feel like we've definitely started to do things a little bit differently, which I think helps. And like I said, we're really fortunate to have some really good partners.
With your obviously marketing degree and your knowledge and everything that you've learned about the speedway world in terms of marketing, do you think that as a whole that the speedway community and tracks and promoters really understand the importance of marketing in this day and age?
I think certain tracks do. I think Ruapuna does a fantastic job, especially within the last few years, of really elevating that. I think, Ruapuna as a whole is leading by example. I think, tracks like Bay Park are doing a really good job. Overall, no, probably. I don't think all the tracks sort of see the value in it. I think you're seeing more and more. It only takes one track to start taking it seriously, and we live in a copycat world. So if people see Ruapuna having success with stuff, hopefully more tracks will follow.
Yeah, for sure. So with that, obviously that brings all the fans and sponsors that you have backing you, and that support makes a real difference in the sport, as everybody knows. So let's chat about what's been happening this season for you guys. You've had some pretty big moments already. You finished on the podium at the American Invasion, which was great for you guys as well. Do you feel like that helped set the tone early? We haven't really done a lot of laps since then, but you've obviously competed in some big meetings as well. So how are you feeling behind the 78 right now?
Yeah, I feel really good. Well, I did feel good until we had sort of a mini off season the last couple of months. But no, I feel really good. I think the team feels really good. I think we're in a really good place right now. Yeah, we've got good car speed. I don't feel like we've, probably had as much success as probably what we could have early on. We top qualified at Ruapuna on opening night and then had some mechanical issues. And then we had a rain out and then obviously lost the 29th meeting for some mechanical issues. So our season didn't really start till the international series, and we managed to finish, third overall after those 4 rounds. So obviously that was, really successful. So that was good, and obviously getting third place here on the 13th of December was a big one. And then obviously we've ran the nationals where we ran 8th, which wasn't probably what we wanted, but after having to restart from the rear and getting back up to a top 10 finish, I was pretty happy. Just gutted that it feels like we haven't raced in a while, and I'm just itching to get back in the seat, in all honesty. Like I said, I feel really good with what we're doing, and I'm excited for a busy month ahead.
So looking ahead, we've obviously got this weekend at Ruapuna, and there's the War of the Wings coming up as well, and then the final again at the end of the month, and then we kind of move on to the Grand Prix, and the South Islands and North Islands are happening in early March as well, and then of course the Gold Cup, which is the big one that a lot of people start focusing on now. What are you focusing on now for the rest of the season? Do you take everything meeting by meeting, or are you kind of looking ahead to those marquee events?
I think definitely taking it meeting by meeting is definitely the key for us. Obviously, in the back of your mind, you're always looking forward, and the Gold Cup is to me the biggest non-nationals event in the South Island. So you sort of do have a long range look at that and to see how you're feeling going into it. But for us, it's just about trying to be a contender every night. I've probably in the past looked too far forward in events, and I feel like it really can affect your performance. So yeah, our first priority is this Saturday night and being as fast as we can be, and hopefully we can put ourselves in a position to be there at the end.
So of course everybody knows that sprint car racing is really tough at the moment, super competitive week in and week out, but of course a win is what everyone's aiming for. But what do you measure your success by on a night? Like, are you happy if you feel comfortable in the car? You need a podium to kind of be super happy about it, or how do you sit in that kind of scale of how you measure your success?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think success, we're in a results-based sport, so I think definitely we want to win races, but like you said, it's very tough. So I think you have to judge a night by how it goes. Sometimes there's just things that happen out of your control, like nationals. I got clipped by another car and had to go to the rear to get back to the top 10. It felt like a successful night. So yeah, it's sort of take it on a night by night basis. Like, obviously we expect to be up the front, hopefully battling for a win. But yeah, I think you've got to look at it and see what happened on the night and see how you handle different situations. And obviously you want to be fast. I think that's, but there's no point being fast if you're not getting results either. So yeah, there's a lot of things that go into it. It's very hard to sort of work out, what is successful, but at the end of the day, I guess it all comes down to results.
So you can catch Matthew Leversedge in the 78C at Ruapuna Speedway this weekend. Matt, thank you very much for your time and best of luck this weekend.
Thanks, Louise. I appreciate you having me on.
AJ, very cool to hear from Matthew Leversedge, always a very well-spoken driver that we enjoy getting to talk to here at Ruapuna Speedway. But nice wee mention of you there from when he finished on the podium here at the New Zealand title, which was pretty special.
Yeah, I've called a lot of New Zealand Sprint Car Championships, maybe 10 or 11 of them, and it's not too many locals that have been on the podium. But it was a very special moment, and when you hear the crowd making that noise, backing their hometown folk, it was a very cool moment. I do remember it exceedingly well, and also a very excited Daniel Thomas who won the thing. So yeah, it was a big night. And there's one thing that I really like about Matthew Leversedge, and he is a consummate professional when it comes to keeping his team on the racetrack. And if I was a young racer, I would be aspiring to be following on in the way that Matthew does things. And it's not unlike Tanner Holmes. I can remember being up in the States there when Tanner Holmes was just a snotty-nosed kid racing the little wingless car, or the winged carts, and I was staggered by the media presence that he had, and the Facebook stuff that he was doing. I thought, wow, this is pretty cool, and it stuck with me. And so Tanner Holmes launched his career using social media, and Matthew Leversedge keeps his career very alive and in front of people with his social media presence. So if I was a young buck wanting to go racing, or someone that's got someone younger that can help them with that, I would be doing that, because the world is still your commercial oyster. All you've got to do is open the doors, but make sure that you don't slam it in the sponsor's face with doing something irresponsible somewhere along the way. So he's a pro, and I love his attitude to racing.
The power of social media is a great thing in the world of Speedway, and that leads us straight into our share and win competition that goes live on our social media before each race meeting, where you will get the chance to enter into a competition to win some free passes to the racing this weekend. For this weekend's share and win, our 10 winners of one adult pass are Nat Sutton, Brendan Cooper, Jackson Clements, Emma Neal, Vicky Joyce, Nick Aitken, Daniel Johnston, Cherie Richards, Michael Wood and Glenn Purdon. Congratulations to those 10. You have all picked up one free adult pass to tomorrow night, February 7th here at Ruapuna Speedway, and it will be available for you to collect at the VIP window at the main gate there. But that leads us straight into our preview of the week as we look ahead to tomorrow night, Saturday, February 7th here at Ruapuna Speedway. AJ, a little bit of reshuffling with that rain out back on January 24th. We've got a lot on the cards this weekend as well, starting with the Savvy Enviro Services King of the South final round for the Lightning Sprints.
Yeah, how competitive has that class been this year? And they've done a bit of travelling too, so it's Boothie's going to have to really pedal that thing to bring it home, but he's actually been the star performer in that class for me, even though Clay Poyo has sort of been grabbing the results. I think the way that Boothie's been doing it has been almost, there's a lot of enjoyment in it, because he's had to play second fiddle for such a long time, and now Clay Poyo comes along, just a young fella, and he's really challenging Boothie for that, but you got to get across the line first to get those points.
Very true. We've also got Jaden Fraser joining us from Invercargill as well. He's always one to watch and always top of his marks here at Ruapuna Speedway as well. So it should be a great battle between those three and many others in that class as well. It's also time for the Melrose Motorsport TQ20 this weekend, which is a favourite of the TQ class. It's pretty hard to look past Lockie Brett and Malachi Webb right now, but AJ, I think it's really time for Jamie Booth to have a good run here at Ruapuna.
It is, and the TQ20 traditionally has the highest points starting off the back and so on, and like last year it was won by Cameron Soul, and Logan Scammell was second. Scammell led for a fair chunk of it by memory, but it's always a race that can spring a major surprise. Malachi and young Brett, they're really going to have to be on top, because if you get your nose in front, there's only one thing in front of you, and that's fresh air. And that's exactly what Cameron Soul showed last year, was that I'm out in front, doesn't matter how good you are, you're chasing me now. But both those young fellas are very capable of coming through the field. And Jamie Booth, you're dead right. He's ready for a very good win.
I totally agree. Of course, we are missing a couple as they've left their cars up in the North Island with the date change of the New Zealand TQ title that's now scheduled to be held on February 14th. Some others have been able to sort out some logistical ways to get down here, Lockie being one of them, who's got the big trek back up to Auckland again with his car. So great to see them making the commitment to be here at Ruapuna this weekend. Of course, Lockie, very strong ties to Melrose Motorsport, so it'll be great to see him representing that brand. Another Melrose sponsored driver, Ethan Smith, will be out there as well. I'm sure if the track prep can get the high side rolling, that's exactly where we're going to find him, AJ.
Well, it's where he goes hunting, isn't it? There's something about a driver that really wants to run that high line, and I say it's about momentum. And running up where angels fear to tread, and Ethan does it very, very well.
It's also the Wingless Sprints Canterbury Champs this weekend as we're making our way through getting these wrapped up after the rain out back in November as well. So the Wingless Sprints, it's probably going to be quite hard to look past Steve Duff Jr., AJ, but I'm actually looking at Blair Smith on the entry list too, and remember him being very quick here at Ruapuna.
Oh yeah, he comes here with some pretty good credentials, doesn't he? And yeah, we're still waiting for that #1 performance from the big duck, Corey Duck Manton. So yeah, no pressure, Duck. Get out there and do it. But Shooter Hawkins, he's not just going to roll over for these guys.
Definitely a very competitive class at the moment. I'm sure a championship on the line will make them treat it no differently either. Now, the midgets will just be a club night for them. They've had a pretty busy schedule with, of course, Dunedin just last weekend, and now looking ahead, they've got Nelson on the 14th for their South Island title as well. But Ben Morgan seems to have found a lot of speed after his trip up north as well. And, of course, hoping Jay had some issues down in Dunedin, but he'll be back and roaring, I'm sure, this weekend. And, of course, Liam McCoubry as well. They've all been incredibly fast.
Yeah, the battles that we've had between just about from the front to the back of that class this year have been exceptional. And, it's something that a lot of people underrate, the performance of the midget cars, but boy, I don't. And they just always deliver such good racing and so on. And, Ben Morgan, he's taking the most of his opportunities right now. But Jay Chadwick, they're very much enjoying a good streak this year. But yeah, Ben Smith, here's a good chance for Ben to notch a few more laps up and really give them the hurry up.
The midget racing has been pretty exceptional so far this season, and I don't expect tomorrow to be any different. And of course, the sprint cars for the Brian Hum Contracting Hydrolink War of the Wings round now. We've reshuffled the Salute to Goody sponsored by Run Acres Insurance into a round of the Gold Cup time so that we're able to get that in as well. But of course, this War of the Wings with the final round coming up, had to get it done as quickly as we could, and this weekend was the perfect opportunity. So it'll be the first time we've seen the War of the Wings since, of course, the massive invasion that we had, so we're expecting a big shuffle up of the points. But great to see Joel Myers Jr. making his way back from the Chili Bowl, AJ, now repping the 2NZ.
Yeah, Joel, we start hearing things like it may be Joel's last campaign. That's unsubstantiated and so on. But I think Matthew Leversedge is a guy that is really targeting the Hydrolink War of the Wings overall honours, and it's gloves off.
Matthew Anderson making the trip up as well. Great to have the support from down south there. And Dylan Forsey returning to the entry list after an unplanned hiatus due to some illness that Dylan struck over the New Year's period as well. So very great to see Dylan back to full health, cleared by the doctors and back on the entry list. I'm sure he's going to be very hungry for some results, AJ.
Oh, he's determined.
We've also got Connor Rangi, of course, as well as Matthew Leversedge, as AJ just spoke about there, and Zach Sokol. So they are all ones to watch this weekend, February 7th. But that wraps up this episode of Methanol Madness. A massive thank you to the Ranch Bar and Grill for being the presenting sponsors of the show. We will go racing tomorrow night at Ruapuna Speedway at 6 p.m. with Sprintcar time trials starting from 5:30. You can buy your tickets online or at the gate by visiting ruapunaspeedway.co.nz for those online tickets. And if you can't be trackside, make sure to visit rjptv.co.nz for the live stream to make sure that you never miss a lap. It's great to be back here at Methanol Madness, but until next time, keep your foot up it.